Well, welcome everybody. This is the DVMUG Zoom meeting, and today we have a special presenter, Joe Kissell. He's actually the publisher of Take Control Books, and he's going to talk about one of the books that he wrote called Take Control of iCloud. So take it away, Joe.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Um, I have presented to your group before. It's been a couple of years. Always nice to virtually be with you. Um, I miss the old pre-pandemic days of actually getting up in front of an audience in person, and I could watch everybody's reaction and I could see what they laugh at and what they're confused about. The Zoom presentations, I've done a million of them. Not quite as good, but we will do the best we can. You might have questions. There's going to be a Q&A time at the end. So ideally, keep yourself muted until the end. And when we have the Q&A time, if you have a question, you raise your hand, unmute yourself, and we'll go for it. If anything dreadful comes up in the meantime, like I can't hear you, you can stop and interrupt. Now, I thought it'd be fun to title this everything you want to know about iCloud, but we're afraid to ask. The truth is, I can't tell you everything you want to know about iCloud in an hour. Every year, the Naples, Florida Mac user group asks me to do a couple of classes for them. And one of the classes I've done 2 or 3 years was on iCloud. And this is a 3-hour class. And even in 3 hours, I couldn't cover everything there was to know about iCloud. So what I did was I took my 3-hour keynote presentation and I just ripped out about half of it, and I updated the remaining bits to reflect what is true today, because what's true today is different from what was true yesterday. And so I'm going to tell you as much as I can in a little less than an hour about iCloud. You will still have some questions. Conveniently, I've got a book for you. So if you were to go buy this book, you'll notice this is now in its 9th edition. I have been working, updating this book for years and years. Before that, I had a book on Mobile Me. Before that, I had a book on .Mac. So I have been documenting Apple's online services for a long, long time. There will be another update, iOS 17, iPadOS 17 coming out next week, Sonoma coming out toward the end of the month. And so this book will be updated to reflect the comparatively minor changes that are happening in those operating systems. And as always, small updates to our books are free. So if you buy it now, no worries, you'll get the free update when it's available. And notice, take a note of that coupon code there. It'll save you 30% on not just this book, but any of our books. So there's my commercial. And I had to be a little bit choosy about what we talk about today. It's a small subset of what's in iCloud. But let's step back a minute and just talk about what all there is there, because, iCloud's been around for a long time, and you're all Apple users. You've heard about iCloud. You've used iCloud. This is not new to you. What you might not realize is how iCloud has grown over the years and how many new features it's added, and how the tendrils of iCloud have just gone in lots and lots of different directions. So, it's a collection of internet services created, and it includes some online storage and syncing of files. And you go to the iCloud website, and there's like web versions of Keynote and Pages and Numbers, Mail and Photos, some other apps. But the main takeaway is there isn't really that much to see. iCloud is like plumbing, or it's like the wiring in your walls. It's the glue that holds all kinds of Apple services together. It helps all of your devices to communicate with each other, sometimes very visibly and sometimes just behind the scenes. But the main takeaway is you can't really see iCloud. You can only see the effects of iCloud. So this presentation is going to be very heavy on plain text and bullets. And I'm sorry about that, because plain text and bullets are boring in keynote presentations. I'll show you some screenshots later on. There will be a little bit of visual interest. Unfortunately, because we're talking about plumbing, in most cases, the best I can show you is the switches where you turn things on and off, and know what a certain folder looks like in the Finder, that sort of things. But I can't show you iCloud because iCloud is supposed to be invisible. You undoubtedly have at least one iCloud account, maybe more than one. And so there's no question, you should use iCloud. It's free, it's very, very helpful, but you do probably want to be picky. You don't want to necessarily just turn on everything. And I'll give you a couple of examples of things you might not want to turn on and why. So I started listing the iCloud features, and I just want to be clear. The lists I'm about to show you are incomplete. There are more features than I could fit on these slides, but let's just zip through some of them. You get an email address in the iCloud.com domain, syncing data, not only from Apple's built-in apps like these here, but also most third-party apps can sync their data by way of iCloud. You have iCloud Drive, so it's storage space in the cloud, and you can access that storage space in the Finder on your Mac or in the Files app on your iPad or iPhone. And you can use that to sync and share media, documents, all kinds of stuff. Now, I want to call your attention to the little asterisk I put in front of sharing, because in the full 3-hour class on iCloud, I had like 20 minutes. It's all about sharing documents and collaborating on documents, and how there are many ways to do it, and all the different permissions you can set, and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot you can share, and it's really cool, but it's more time consuming than we can cover. So anything that has an asterisk on it means, yeah, it's an iCloud feature. You can read about it in my book. Unfortunately, we won't have time to talk about it today. Another one of those features is family sharing. You can share storage space, calendars, files, location, all kinds of different stuff with up to 5 other family members. And that's something that we use in our household. I could tell you how to set that up, and like all the different things you can do with family sharing. Don't have time today. Whoops, sorry about that. Pressed the wrong button. iCloud Photos. So if you use Apple's Photos app on your iPhone, on your Mac, wherever, you can turn on a switch that says, hey, yeah, I will also store all those photos in the cloud and sync them amongst all of your different devices. So that's great. It's very handy. Little catch, and the little catch is we only get 5 gigabytes of storage in iCloud for free, and that doesn't go very far when it comes to photos. So that might be a feature you want to turn off unless you're willing to pay Apple some extra money, and we'll talk about that in a bit. There's Find My iPhone, Find My Mac, Find My Friends, Find My AirTags, Find My Everything. That uses iCloud. You have an iPhone, an iPad, all of the stuff on it can be backed up to the cloud with just, you tap a button and turn on a switch, and it's done, and it happens for you automatically. Won't be talking about that today. iCloud Keychain syncs your usernames and passwords across all your devices. Super cool, super useful. Don't have time to talk about it. And then there's this thing called iCloud Plus, which we will talk about. And that's where you pay Apple money for some extra features. And those include more storage space, plus a bunch of other things. And some of those other things that you get with iCloud Plus are specifically privacy enhancing features. So we'll talk about some of those. And then another asterisked item there is all these web apps on iCloud.com. Yes, you can check your email there, and you can find your object there, and you can use pages there. We don't have time to get into the web apps today. Now, in addition to those major features, there are a bunch of minor features, and even this list is incomplete. Like, this list doesn't include things like legacy contacts so that somebody else can get access to your stuff after you die. It doesn't include like recovery contacts for people that can help you get your stuff back while you're still alive if you forget your password. It doesn't include advanced data protection where you can add end-to-end encryption to more kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of other stuff that iCloud can do. I'm not even going to read this list for you because you can read, but these kinds of things are some of the many, many parts of your experience of using any Apple device, whether it's a watch, an iPhone, HomePod, Apple TV, really any Apple device is going to use iCloud to interact with the others and to interact with Apple servers in a bunch of different ways. So let's start into some of the features that you might find particularly interesting and useful. We're going to start with mail. So everybody who has an iCloud account, and remember, it's free, we probably all have one, maybe more than one, gets an email address in the iCloud.com domain. Now, if you were a user of MobileMe, you might also have a me.com address. If you were a user of .Mac or iTools before that, you might have a Mac.com address too. You can't get those anymore, but if you had them from way back when, you still have them. Now, if you want to use Apple's Mail app to get at your iCloud Mail, that's fine. It's easy. It's sort of set up almost automatically for you. That's the way most people do it, but you can also check it on the web. You can also use a different client if you want to use Microsoft Outlook or Thunderbird or, any of innumerable other email apps, no problem. You can do that and check your iCloud Mail. Now, one of the things people get have a lot of confusion about is like, well, I have, 10 different accounts set up in Apple Mail, which I actually do. I have lots of email accounts. And so some people have the idea that just because one of those accounts is iCloud, that iCloud is responsible for syncing all of your messages from all of your accounts across your devices, but it doesn't do that. iCloud is responsible only for the messages in your iCloud account itself. You will sync your messages to your Hotmail account, Yahoo account, Gmail account, whatever. You have different kinds of accounts. Those will sync independently with the server on each device. Now, even though iCloud itself does not sync the data from your other accounts, it does do some other kinds of related syncing. For example, this stuff. Let's say you go out, you buy a new Mac. You open it up, you turn it on, you go through the little setup thing, and then it says, "Hey, so let's turn your iCloud account. You enter your email, your username, your password. That's great. You want to sync all your stuff? You say, yes, please sync all of my stuff." So what's going to happen is that your new Mac will suck in from the internet the account names and settings of other email accounts you have. Now, it's not going to actually sync your data, but at least the accounts themselves will be there. And so you can independently sync the messages from those accounts. Things like smart mailboxes and signatures and the other stuff mentioned on there also syncs between your devices. Some of it's Mac only when you turn on iCloud Mail. Now, if you also pay Apple money for iCloud Plus, then you get some additional features in iCloud Mail. And we'll get to those in a few minutes. But there are some things that everybody gets, even if you don't pay Apple any money, and that's this list. So you can have a few aliases. So my handle that I've had since 2001, or when did iTools first come out? Long time ago, really long time ago, is my initials, JWK. So JWK at Mac.com, and then I have at me.com and at iCloud.com. But I thought, well, somebody might want to send email to my full name. So I also got the alias Joe Kissell. So Joe Kissell at iCloud.com also works. So you can set up 3 of these. If you go onto the iCloud website, You can set up rules there that sort your mail or filter your mail before it even gets to, let's say, your iPhone. So even if you're not using a device that has built-in spam filtering or things like that, you can filter it on the server. You can set up an out of the office or vacation message, forward your email to another place, and mail drop. This is a really cool iCloud feature that lets you send an attachment to somebody that's way, way bigger than any email server would accept. You could send like a 5 gigabyte attachment to somebody. And the way it works is you drop the attachment in your message just as you would any other attachment. But when you click send, Apple uploads the attachment to iCloud and it inserts in the email where the attachment would have been a link to that message that your recipient can download it. And what's cool about Mail Drop is that even though this is an iCloud feature, it works with all your email accounts. You can turn this on for a Gmail account. You can turn it on for a Hotmail account for whatever you want. So that's the very quick overview of iCloud Mail. Next up is a more complex topic, and that is iCloud Drive. iCloud Drive is storage in the cloud. It's, some space on Apple's servers, and you can sync what's in that space to your Mac, to your iPhone, to your iPad, and from within the Finder, you can look and see what all files do I have there. You can get at them directly. So that's, in a nutshell, what iCloud Drive is. If you've used Dropbox, Google Drive, OneDrive, things of that sort, it's very similar. Not identical, but in that same kind of ballpark. One question I've gotten many, many times is, oh, so iCloud Drive is basically backup. I put some files in this folder, now I have them on my Mac, and I also have a backup in iCloud, right? And I say, no, that's not a backup. This is syncing. Syncing might sound similar to backup. I have a whole other book on backing up your Mac, which you should also buy. But I have a whole other book on backing up your Mac that explains why syncing is one thing and backup is another thing. One of the key differences is that, let's say I'm syncing, I have a folder of stuff here, and great, that's synced to iCloud Drive. That's marvelous. Now I delete something here. Guess what? It gets deleted from iCloud Drive too. Now, iCloud's going to hang on to deleted files for a month, and there is a way that you can go get them back within that month, but that's it. A backup, by contrast, is designed to not have things deleted from it. It's going to keep every version of that file that you ever backed up. It's going to keep versions of files that you deleted, even after you've deleted them, even a year, 2 years, 3 years after you've deleted them. So sync serves one purpose, and it's a good thing to do. Backup is a different thing. So, hey, a graphic. Needed to interject a little bit of color here. So let's talk about iCloud Drive. If you go into System Settings, this is taken on Mac running Sonoma. If you are running something else, it'll look a little different. But I went into System Settings and I clicked my name on the left, my Apple ID, and then I clicked iCloud to show all the iCloud stuff. And of course, this scrolls for quite a way. But I want to call your attention to this area right down here. If you click iCloud Drive, this is where you configure iCloud Drive. So you click this and and this thing pops up. So first switch at the top is just turn it on and off. What you have then you have two other things that I'm going to talk about at two different times. So we will come back to the desktop and documents folders in a couple of minutes, but right now I want to refer your attention to apps syncing to iCloud Drive. So it so happens there are 35 on this particular Mac, and if I click this, I'll get a list. So this scrolls for quite some way, and you can see, oh, Automator syncs its stuff to iCloud, and BBEdit does, and Books, I've set it on this particular example Mac not to. So depending on the amount of storage space you have available and what you prefer to sync across your devices, you can go through here and turn various apps on or off to get their data to sync across your devices or not. All right, so you've turned on iCloud Drive, most of us have. Now you're out in the Finder. And if you click iCloud Drive in the sidebar on the left of any Finder window, you will see folders representing all those apps we just saw a second ago, the switches for. So all the ones that are turned on, they have folders here. And you can use these folders just like any other folder. They are basically like any other folder. You can drag stuff in, you can drag stuff out. You can make changes in them, you can copy them, you can delete stuff, you can add new folders. So if you want to store something in iCloud Drive, I'd like to have a Joe folder here. Great. Create a folder that's called Joe's Documents, and then you just drag stuff into it, and boom, it's an iCloud Drive. So at a basic level, that's how iCloud Drive functions. You have a copy on your Mac, and you have a copy in the cloud. But then it gets a little more complicated. And one of the ways it gets complicated is in something called optimized storage. Now I have optimized Mac storage here because my screenshots are from a Mac. This is also true for other Apple devices. The basic idea of optimized storage is this. You have a limited amount of space on your device. Now, you might have like the cheapest possible Mac that only has a 256 gigabyte SSD in it. And you're like, but I have lots more stuff than that. Where do I put it? Or you might have a 8 terabyte SSD, but you have a massive amount of stuff. So however much stuff you have, if it is greater than the amount of space you have storage for on your device, optimized storage is Apple's proposed solution to this. So here's how it works. Go back in here, we were just here a moment ago, and you turn on this switch, Optimize Mac Storage. Now, when you initially turn on this switch, I'm not going to see anything different. Really, nothing is going to happen. What you're doing by turning on that switch is telling Apple, okay, if I start copying some new file onto this Mac, or I create a file, or I'm downloading a file, or I'm syncing a file, and you, Apple, determine that I'm getting low on storage space, that I'm running the risk of running out of storage space, and they don't tell you like exactly what the threshold is, how many gigabytes or whatever, but if it's going to get close, then what I want you to do is to take some of those files that are already stored in iCloud, leave them there safely in iCloud, but delete them from my Mac. They're still going to look like they're there, because if I went into a Finder window, I would notice, oh, there's my documents folder, there's my Keynote folder, there's a Pages document I made. The files are still there, but you'll notice this one little icon that I've enlarged next to the downloads. It looks like a cloud with a downward pointing arrow. What that icon means is that this document is in the cloud, it's safe there, but it's not stored locally on your Mac. All you have on your Mac is just an icon, just a placeholder for it. So you'll notice the one that's selected down there, the novel.pages, it's 246 megabytes. So that's 246 megabytes that is not being occupied by my Mac's storage. So if I like, okay, that's great. I'm glad it's an iCloud, but now I want to actually open this and use this. Well, it's fine. You can click that little icon to download it, or you can just double click it and it's be like, wait a minute, I'm going to download this, and as soon as I'm finished downloading it, then I'll open it up for you. So what optimized storage lets you do is basically expand the amount of your Mac's internal storage by however much money you're paying Apple for. And again, we'll get back to that payment part. So if you have a 256 gigabyte SSD, but you pay Apple for 2 terabytes of storage, it's almost as though, almost as though you have a 2 terabyte SSD. It's just that some things are going to be a little slower. Now, optimized storage also has a separate setting that I'm not going to show you that works with photos. So it's the same kind of thing. Do you have 50 gigabytes of photos, but only space on your Mac for 20? No problem. You turn on optimized storage for photos specifically. And then when you run out of space, it leaves the copies in the cloud safely there, deletes the originals from photos. You want them back, you double click them, and it downloads. Now, a moment ago, when I said there's two things I want to tell you about iCloud Drive, two parts of this window that I want to call your attention to, one of them was optimized storage, and the other has to do with desktop and documents sync. So to refresh your memory, you go back here, you click iCloud Drive, and this is what we're talking about, desktop and documents folders. I've talked to a lot of user groups and a lot of individual users about iCloud. And this one feature is probably the one thing that I've had the most questions about and found that there's the most confusion and grief about. So I want to talk to you about it because I want to help reduce pain. All right, so here's the sales pitch. Here's the great idea. You know, your desktop, that place that's covered with stuff that you move there and you download and it's always cluttered. Yeah, you know, some people store a lot of stuff there. Some people store nothing there, but that's a place where people keep a lot of their documents. The other place that people keep most of their documents is inside their documents folder. So inside your user folder, there's a folder called documents, and either at the top level of that folder or in other subfolders that you create, that's where most of us keep most of our stuff. You can put stuff in other places. You can make other folders wherever you want, but these two are the most common places. So Apple says, okay, how about if we give you a switch that stores the contents of those two folders in iCloud for you? All right, so not just the stuff that's in iCloud Drive, in that iCloud Drive folder that we looked at a minute ago, but also everything that's in your documents and your desktop folders, because those are the most important places. That way, almost any document that you make or work with, it's going to be safely stored in iCloud. It's going to be accessible from your other devices because everything syncs. And if you run out of space, no problem. We'll keep the original in iCloud and you can always download it. So that's the sales pitch. And when you are upgrading to a new version of Mac OS, there will often be a screen that says, hey, I notice you're not storing everything in iCloud. Don't you want to store your documents and desktop folders there too? And there will be a checkbox, and it's pre-checked so that most people are just going to click next without even thinking about it. And that's where we get into problems, because even though Apple seems to be trying to do you a favor here, very often this feature backfires and you wish you hadn't used it. So let's get into some more details about this. If you have one Mac, more power to you. You turn it on, your stuff syncs, and for the most part, you'll never know the difference. And if you have plenty of storage space on that Mac, you really will never know the difference. It will seem like it's just the same to you, and it will be. Problem comes in if you have two or more Macs. So let's say this desktop and document syncing feature is not on yet, and you turn it on multiple Macs. What's going to happen? Well, first of all, in iCloud Drive, you will see desktop Mac A, desktop Mac B, documents Mac A, documents Mac B. You're like, well, so each of those Macs desktop and documents folders are syncing independently to iCloud Drive. They're not syncing with each other. Okay, so if your goal here is to get everything on Mac A to sync with Mac B on the desktop and documents folder, that doesn't happen automatically. You can make it happen, but you have to manually go to those two folders and sort out the duplicates and cross-pollinate them the way you want them to be before that happens. Instructions in the book, okay? So let's say, all right, I turned it on multiple Macs, and I realized, oops, I don't want it. Can't I just turn it off and everything will be happy again? Well, no, because what happens is you turn it off and everything, your desktop folder on your Mac will disappear. All the things that were in your desktop folder will disappear. Your documents folder will disappear. And you're going to go, Apple, what did you do to all my stuff? I thought you promised me that all this stuff was safely synced to iCloud. It is safely synced to iCloud. It's just that when you turn this feature off, Apple moves those folders into a different location, and you have to go into iCloud Drive in the Finder and find them, and then select their contents and move them back to where you wanted them in the first place. So you're not losing data, but again, you have to manually put the stuff back where you want it. So that's all of this is one reason why it's a hassle. Another reason why it's a hassle is if you have really big files, the syncing up and down between your computer and iCloud Drive can take a long time. It can take sometimes a really long time. No way to speed it up. Sometimes it's not even clear what the progress is. Which file is syncing now? What order are they going to sync in? When is this going to start syncing? You don't know. So the bigger your files are and the more frequently they change, the more you're going to have this problem. And if you have a lot of data in these two folders, you are almost definitely going to have to pay Apple for more storage too. So those are some downsides. The other sort of confusion that arises, all right, I turned on desktop and document sync, or even maybe I didn't even turn that feature on, but I'm just talking about iCloud Drive, the separate iCloud Drive folder. And I'm not really clear what's in iCloud and what's on my Mac. How can I tell? So the first thing I want to say is that Apple would really prefer that you not even think about this or worry about it. Apple wants you to just have the attitude that, oh, we got everything, it's all cool. Everything will be where it needs to be when it needs to be there. But sometimes real life doesn't work like that. The way you should think about it is that Apple's iCloud servers have the main copy, the master copy of everything. And from there, it sort of trickles down to every place else. Now, if I change a file or add a file, it's only on my Mac for a moment, but as soon as it syncs up to the cloud, that cloud version becomes the master copy, and then the changes trickle down to other places. Make a change, add a new file, delete a file, same process. Now, optimized storage, as previously discussed, does make this trickier because you might see an icon for a file or folder, but yet the file itself is really not there. The contents aren't there. And that's why I showed you that little icon that's going to show up, the little cloud download icon. That indicates that something is in the cloud but not stored locally. So let's say you use iCloud Drive, yes, with or without the desktop and documents folders. And you want to make sure that something is on your Mac, stays on your Mac, but is removed from Apple storage. How do you do that? Really simple, drag it out of the iCloud Drive folder. Now, remember, if you're syncing your desktop and documents folders, you can't drag it out of iCloud onto your desktop because that's just another thing that Apple's syncing. You can't drag it into your documents folder. You would have to drag it into some location that is really outside of your iCloud Drive, really outside of what Apple is syncing. What about the flip side of this? What if you have something on iCloud Drive, but you want to expressly say, I would really not like to have a local copy of this until I want it. I want to free up this amount of storage space. I don't want to wait around until I get low on storage space. I want to tell Apple right now to get rid of my local copy. So to do that, you select the item, you control click or right click it, and a little pop-up menu appears and you choose remove download. The icon will stay there, but it'll get the little cloud thing indicating now it's only in iCloud. All right. We've talked about iCloud Drive, which involves storing a lot of stuff on Apple's servers. And we need to kind of address this storage issue now, because as I mentioned, Apple only gives you 5 gigabytes of storage, which I have to say is just a stupidly low number. Any single device, like if you're backing up your iPhone to iCloud, that's almost definitely going to use more than 5 gigabytes. If you take a few photos a day, it's going to take no time at all before you use up more than 5 gigabytes of storage. So in this day and age, 5 GB for a company like Apple is kind of insulting. It should really be way more than that. But the upshot of this is that most of us, if we want to get any real utility out of iCloud Drive, as well as iCloud storage for photos and other large pieces of data, we're going to have to pony up some money to expand that. Now, the free storage, well, whether you're just dealing with the free storage or not, all these kinds of data have to share that space. So it's not just the stuff in iCloud Drive. Yes, it is that. Not just your photos. Yes, it is that too, but also your iOS and iPadOS backups, also all of your email and all of your email attachments, as long as they're in your iCloud account. I will say there is a little, silver lining to the cloud. There are some things that don't count against your quota, like the stuff in this list. So, I use that mail drop feature to email somebody a 5 GB file. That doesn't count toward your quota, thank goodness. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, photos in my photo stream, that doesn't actually exist anymore. I forgot to remove that. Sorry. But the main thing I want to call your attention to is that first bullet point. So if you buy a movie, an album, a book, whatever, from like media of any kind from Apple, that doesn't count toward your quota because Apple already has a copy of that stuff on their servers. They're not going to use iCloud to back up a copy that they already have. So you're off the hook with those things. All right. So bottom line is, you're going to run out almost certainly. And your two paths are either I'm going to go turn off some of those apps, move stuff out of iCloud Drive so that I don't have to pay for extra storage, which you can do, but it's a pain, or I'm going to pay Apple for extra storage. So it used to be that Apple had just simply paid tiers for extra storage. And then a couple of years ago, they started saying, we're gonna change the name of paid storage. We're gonna call it iCloud Plus, and it's gonna be more than just storage space. We're gonna add some more features too, like these ones. So if you have security cameras, there's HomeKit Secure Video, which I'm not gonna talk about. iCloud Private Relay, hide my email. Those are two privacy features that I am going to talk about shortly. You can add a custom email domain if you like. I'll mention that later too. And all of this stuff is shareable in your family group. So if you have a family group and one person is, you the family organizer, are paying for extra storage, then you can share that with everybody in your family. So that's cool. Now, there are still different tiers. And yesterday, there were only 3, but Apple announced today, there are going to be 2 more starting next week. So if you only need a little bit of extra storage, 50 GB, you pay 99 cents a month, on up to 2 TB for $10 a month. If you want 12 terabytes of cloud storage, you're going to pay Apple $60 a month. And I don't know anybody who needs that kind of storage. I certainly don't. I've been at the 2 terabyte level for years, and I've never come close to filling it up. But up to you. Depending on the level you choose, you will get some different features around the security camera stuff. Besides buying iCloud Plus as a standalone thing, you can also buy these Apple One bundles that include the extra storage and the other iCloud Plus features, yes, but also some other things like access to Apple Music and Apple News Plus and Apple TV Plus and Arcade and Apple Fitness Plus and so forth, depending on which tier you buy. So I've been on the Premier tier for my family because we use all those things. We use News Plus. I use Apple TV Plus all the time, Apple Music. So it just makes sense. It's a very substantial savings of money as opposed to buying all those things individually. Now, if you get an Apple One plan, you could also still add more storage on top of that. But for most people, one of these things will be sufficient. Okay, so let's look at your storage, and we're going to pretend that you have paid Apple some extra money for one of these plans. You can see here at the top of my screen, I've paid Apple for 2 terabytes. And here's a little colorful graph as to how my storage space breaks down. Now, this is not to scale, because you'll notice on the right-hand side, says 1.26 terabytes of free space. So I've used less than half of my storage. It looks like I've used almost exactly half. Now, there's helpful little color coding. Documents are orange and photos and videos are yellow and so forth. But if you want a little bit more specificity of, I want to know how much I'm storing in terms of backups or messages or whatever, you just hover over one of those little colored bars with your mouse and say, oh, I'm storing 5 gigabytes of stuff from messages. How can you have 5 gigabytes of messages? Messages are really short. They don't take up very much space, even thousands of them. Yeah, but have you ever sent or received photos in messages or videos or other files? That's what that adds up to. So if you want to see how your storage space in iCloud is being managed, that's how you do it. Now you want to actually change something, you click the Manage button. And whoops, okay, here we go. And that brings up something like this. You'll notice this is a scrolling window. It goes very, very far down with all the different apps. You can change your storage plan, change your family settings. For right now, I'm just going to pretend that I want to, like, I'm running out of storage. I really need to free up some space. How can I do that? Well, I scroll down, I pick an app like Photos. It happens to be near the top. It's convenient. I'm going to click on that. And then it's going to say, well, I'm storing 29,000 and change of photos and 449 videos. If I want to delete those from iCloud, then I click the turn off and delete from iCloud. So what will happen is I will keep all of my local copies on my Mac. If I didn't already have a local copy, it'll get downloaded from iCloud, and then the iCloud copies will be deleted. But okay, I know this is many tens of gigabytes. What if I don't have that amount of space on my Mac right now? Tough luck. You can't turn it off. So you're going to have to buy more storage on iCloud.com, then turn off the feature, download local stuff, move those out of the way. Or sorry, by what I meant to say was get more local storage, move some other stuff from your Mac to that local storage to make space for these photos, then download them, then turn it off. All right, other iCloud Plus features. These are with any paid plan. Well, there's iCloud Private Relay, and it's really just you go into the system settings and you flip a switch or two. And what that does is it gives you a limited amount of protection against snooping, most particularly the kind of snooping that advertisers do, kind of intrusive, tracking that advertisers do. It is not a complete or total solution to that problem, mind you, but it helps. It's a little bit like a virtual private network in that it disguises from the person on the other end where your traffic is coming from. So that means that if I connect to a website and this feature is on, that website can't tell exactly where I am. It can't tell like my street address. Whereas if I turn this feature off, they can. They can use your IP address to figure out exactly where you are geographically. So that's one of the things that iCloud Private Relay does. It goes through this sort of two-step handoff process so that sites can't know both who you are and what sites you're visiting. Includes encryption. Is really helpful. Does this solve all tracking problems? Definitely not. But you turn it on with a click or two. It's easy. Excuse me. It's definitely worth doing. Now, I want to caution you that if you say, well, I've got Private Relay turned on, so now I'm going to go to this site, they will never know who I am. And even when I log in with my email address and password, they still won't know who you, and actually they will know. So if you go to a site and you log in, if you tell them who you are, well, then yes, they're going to know. So there are ways around that. Topic of another book. But you still have to be careful is sort of the news there. The other little gotcha is it works great in Safari, but this only works with some isolated other things. This is not universal for all of your browsers. So if you open up Chrome, which by the way, you shouldn't do, but if you open up Firefox, Firefox will not take advantage of private relay. That's something that is for the moment restricted mostly to Apple's browsers. Next feature in iCloud Plus, hide my email. So basically, this is based on an earlier feature called Login with Apple. A new website or an app says, you need an account. Let me have your email address. And you say, but I don't want to give you my real email address because I'm afraid you're going to start sending me spam. So instead, you click a button and Apple generates a random disposable email address for you. And it fills in your email address and lets you create the account. And you can even use this when you're not creating an account, even just like I'm sending somebody an email message, I'm just using Mail. You can create one of these disposable messages right from within Mail. So you have this account, this fake email address, and if somebody replies to it, that will work because Apple will forward the mail to your regular iCloud address. But if you start getting spam, you can just go and click a button and delete that address, and now you're no longer reachable at it. All right, third thing that you get with iCloud Plus that is related to mail, not really related to privacy, is if you have your own domain name. Like I own the domain name takecontrolbooks.com. Okay, so if I wanted to, I could have all the email from that domain sent to iCloud, and iCloud would actually handle that email. Now, I don't want to do that due to reasons, but I could if I wanted to. This is similar to a feature we had back in the old days of Mac and Mobile Me. The problem is, well, the first problem is you need to have a computer science degree to set it up. I'm exaggerating, but only slightly. It is a really geeky kind of thing. You have to know your way around changing settings on your DNS provider, and it's not something like, the average person is going to find very easy. Once you've done that, even if you own the domain, you can only set up 3 different addresses. So I could have Joe at Take Control Books and my wife Morgan at Take Control Books, and I could have support at Take Control Books. But if I needed another one, and we need more, I would be unable to do that with this feature. Okay, so I have kind of alluded to some common points of confusion that often come up, and I want to talk about a couple more. In the longer version of this presentation in my book, I go into a lot more detail about solving problems, but there are a couple of things in particular I want to call your attention to because they're just so common and so vexing. And the first question is really simple. Why don't things sync? Like whatever it is, maybe it's my email, maybe it's a document in iCloud Drive, maybe it's a photo that I took. Why don't things sync the way they should? And I just want to start by saying, well, reiterating what I said before, actually, that Apple doesn't give you any control over the syncing or any visibility. It's not going to say, well, here are the 95 photos queued up, and this one's going to be next, and watch the progress bar, and then this one's going to be the one after that, and watch. You don't know. You just know something is syncing, but I can't say sync now, and I can't say no, don't sync this. Like you can't control it. So a lot of the times, the actual answer is it will sync, but you gotta wait, and waiting's not fun, and I'm sorry. Apart from that, there are some other possibilities. One possibility is the thing is turned on one device and not on another. Now, way back toward the beginning, I said, oh, look, you can go into the iCloud settings and you can turn on or off any individual app. And I called your attention to the fact that Books was turned off. Now, I probably turned off Books on that Mac because I was testing something, and for a moment I wanted things not to sync, and then I forgot about it. So the next day or a week later, I'm looking at Books on another one of my Macs, like, why isn't that book there? Like it should be syncing, right? It should just auto magically sync across all my devices. But sometimes you turn something off for whatever reason and you forget, or you never turned it on in the first place, or there's some bug and it gets turned off accidentally, whatever. What you should do is go into all the settings and all the devices and make sure all those data types that you want to be syncing are turned on. Okay, even though you do that, things still might not sync. There might be a network problem. Could be your Wi-Fi connection, could be your local router, could be your cable modem or whatever you use to connect to the internet, could be something regionally or nationally, or could be a problem on Apple's end. Network problems of many different kinds can interfere with syncing. Most of the time, that's like a wait and it'll go away by itself, or turn off the thing and turn it back on again and it'll go away. Of course, Apple does have non-network related outages, and I will talk about those with another graphic in a minute. Shocking but true. Software has bugs. Even Apple software. Sonoma has bugs. Ventura has bugs. Every version of macOS has bugs. Every version of iOS has bugs. And a bug could be causing the problem. What I want to tell you is, if something isn't working, and this is sort of a universal thing for any problem with any Apple device, almost certainly it's not you. It's not your fault. Go back to like Goodwill Hunting and Robin Williams is talking to Matt Damon. It's not your fault. No, really, it's not your fault. Almost all the time when something isn't working, and that is especially true of iCloud syncing, it's not you, it's a bug, or it's a network problem, or it's a something. So don't beat yourself up about it and conclude I must have done something wrong. Well, is there anything you can do? Well, there is this one little trick that I found. So let's say I've got some stuff in iCloud Drive, like I've put in a new document, or I'm waiting for a document to download. If I go into the sidebar of a Finder window where that iCloud Drive icon is there, you'll notice this little thing next to it, a little pie chart. And this pie chart is supposed to indicate your total progress of iCloud Drive syncing. This is uploads and downloads combined. If you were to click this, you might see something. Oh, okay, great. So I can see what it's actually doing now is it's uploading 5 items, and it's 3.7 megabytes of 5.6 megabytes. Okay, great. So that should only take a few more seconds. And then you wait a few seconds and it doesn't budge. And you wait 5 minutes and it doesn't budge. You wait an hour and it doesn't budge. This kind of thing happens disturbingly often. If only there were a way I could say, hey, wake up. So there is a way. Here's how you do it. Open terminal. Okay, doesn't matter if you don't know anything about the Mac command line, although you could read my book on that topic. Open up terminal, and you're going to enter this: kill all space bird semicolon kill all space cloud D. There's 2 D's there, cloud. Press return. So when you do that, macOS is going to interrupt all of the iCloud Drive syncing processes. It's going to it's like pulling the plug on them. And as soon as you pull the plug, they're going to restart. Very often, simply making those processes restart will sort of bring them back to life, and then the syncing completes in short order. I wish I could say it works all the time. It works a lot of the time, but it's a lot quicker and easier than actually turning your Mac off and turning it back on. So one more thing. If you encounter any other sort of problem with iCloud, whether it's iCloud Drive or one of the numerous other features, I do have a sort of all-purpose troubleshooting feature. Again, doesn't always work, but usually it does. And this is sort of not quite the nuclear method, but pretty much. So you do this when all else has failed. So step 1, before you start messing with anything, you want to go to this address, apple.com/support/system status, and you'll have a page with all of Apple's online services. Oh, there are so many. Now, not all of these are part of iCloud. You'll see in that middle column, you got iCloud account and sign in and iCloud backup and iCloud calendar and all these iCloud things, but then you got a lot of other stuff too. So this is a global view into all of Apple's online services. You want to see green, all right? Green means there are no problems with that service that Apple is currently admitting to. Doesn't necessarily mean there aren't problems or that Apple won't admit to it later, but they are not aware of and admitting to any problems. If it's yellow or red, then yellow means some people are having some problems, and red means no, sorry, this isn't working at all for anybody. So before you start fiddling with other stuff, just check to make sure that the thing you're having trouble with isn't like down on Apple's side. All right, so after you've done that, on each of your devices, your Mac, your iPhone, your iPad, whatever, go to the iCloud settings screen and turn off whatever the thing is. I'm having trouble with iCloud Mail, I'm having trouble with iCloud Photos, or whatever that thing is. Turn it off on all that. Turn off that service on all your devices, restart all of your devices. Don't skip this step. Once they've restarted, turn that thing back on all of your devices. That very often kicks things back into business. If and only if that doesn't work, then you got to do the very painful thing. You go back there to iCloud settings on all of your devices, and you click or tap sign out. It's going to give you lots and lots of warning. Are you sure? Really? What do I do with this stuff? You say, yes, I really want to sign out completely. Apple will keep all the stuff it's got in iCloud, but it's going to erase a lot of stuff from your devices. You do that, and then you restart. Again, don't skip the restart step. Really important. If it's an iOS device or an iPad, turn it off, turn it back on again. Then you go back into iCloud, sign back in, turn all the things on, and wait for them to sync. Now, in really severe cases, you might have to do this not only on the device that you're having problems with, but on all of your devices. This sucks. It's very, very time-consuming and very, very irritating. I hope you don't ever have to do this. But as irritating as this is, it's less irritating than having to go to an Apple store and, leave your devices with somebody for days of troubleshooting. Okay, so it's less bad than that. All right, so talking for almost an hour. There is so much more to say about iCloud. I'd love for you to buy this book. And remember, it's going to be updated very soon to talk about the fall operating systems. Use our coupon code there to save 30% on all of our books. We have so many. We have a book on Sonoma. We have a book on iOS 17 and iPadOS 17. We have a book on Apple Watch. We have a book on photos. We have a book on backing up your Mac. We have a book on shortcuts. Like, we have so much stuff, and I think you'll find it really valuable and interesting. They're all ebooks you can download and read on any device. Hope you'll take advantage of that. So with that, I'm going to turn off my screen sharing for a Q&A time. And if you have a question, please unmute yourself, and I'll see what I can do to answer them. And I'm just now looking at the chat for the first time. Arlene says, I have an iPhone 10, so I guess I'm going to have to upgrade to something since it's going to lose Apple support. Yeah, it will. Sorry. That happens. Okay, I see somebody with Jill, I think, and Arnie.
Yes.
Can you unmute yourself? Okay, hi.
That's great. Thank you. I have been using iCloud, I feel, as a backup. So I have all my photos in iCloud as well as on my Mac.
Yep.
You clearly said this is not a backup.
Right.
So tell me what I'm doing wrong.
Okay, it's no problem to be doing what you're doing. Doing what you're doing is good. It's helpful. It's useful. What I want you to, because I've written a lot about backups, and I I'll just tell you, I started writing about backups because of me losing data. I'm like, oh, this bad thing happened to me. Can I save other people from this bad thing happening? Okay, so it comes out of my pain that I want to save you from. So the problem with something like iCloud Photos is that, let's say something happens and you delete some photos from the Photos app on your Mac that you really wanted to save. Now, when I say something happens, that could be your cat walks across the keyboard, or, or there's a bug in an app and it causes data loss, or you were selecting something, but you didn't notice you bumped the delete key. Okay, something happens. It could be user error. It could be an act of God. It could be a pet, a child, whatever. Something happens. Or, okay, even if nothing happens at all in your computer, something happens on Apple's side. Apple has some sort of data loss in their data centers. So something happens, whether on your computer or on Apple's side, and maybe you don't notice it immediately. Maybe you delete this photo that you thought you were just editing it. You accidentally hit the wrong key. You don't notice this for a month. Well, during that month, if you notice it, there's a way to retrieve it. But after that, all of Apple's extra copies are gone for good. So what I say, especially for something that is as valuable and unique as photos, absolutely do use iCloud Photos. It's great for what it does, but in addition to that, you should also have a separate backup, because I have just experienced this far too many times. Stuff goes wrong. Now, there are lots of other ways to actually back up your stuff. You could go buy an external hard drive and plug it into your Mac, and it'll say, oh, shall I turn on Time Machine? You say, yes, please do that. And then Time Machine runs every hour and it backs up stuff to the local hard drive. Or you could get a network device. I have one behind the screen that backs up all of the Macs in my house. Or you can use a cloud backup service like Backblaze that does a backup to another cloud server, but then doesn't delete stuff when you delete the originals. So there are lots of different ways that you can back up your stuff. I would just I'm not telling you you have to or you'll be a bad person. I'm telling you I would like to save you from the pain of data loss. So I would recommend that everybody have homeowners insurance and everybody have car insurance, right? Because stuff happens. So backups are file insurance. So I recommend that everybody have backups in addition to whatever cloud storage you might use.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I see Kenji in San Francisco has a raised hand.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is on somebody online, not in this group, but on a Facebook group, was asking, he says, I have a small drive on my Mac and iCloud is using up all this space. I want to get all these iCloud files. So he showed the graphic of the data usage from settings. And on my Mac, I don't use iCloud. I don't back up my documents and desktop. I see documents, apps, etc.
Yeah.
On his, the biggest portion, I think, said iCloud or iCloud Drive. Are those the files that are copied to iCloud, but is also a local copy?
Right. So that graph that I showed you shows the stuff that is stored in iCloud. That is not showing you what's on your Mac. So for the purpose of that graph, any of those files might only be in iCloud, or they might be both in iCloud and stored locally. Unfortunately, if what you want to see is show me all the files that are stored locally or show me all the files that are only on iCloud, there's no good way to see that other than going into those folders and saying, well, this one has the little cloud icon, that one doesn't. This one has it, that doesn't. So I wish there were a better way, but I don't know of one.
Okay. My other question pertains to me. So I've had a long-standing problem with when I enter multiple calendar events on my Mac.
Mm-hmm.
The first one gets synced properly. The latter ones tend to not get synced. they don't show, and then eventually it seems that iCloud then goes, okay, they're not here, but they're on the local device, so it deletes it on. I have those multiple events will tend to disappear from my Mac also. And the only workaround, and this goes over a number of different devices and also different versions. So it's not a bug in a specific version. And all I can imagine is that entering several events or editing events in a row, the latter ones don't trigger syncing like they should. And
I mean,
the only thing I found
should...
to work around that is to go to iCloud.com on my Mac and enter them there, and they seem to propagate from there downward properly.
Yeah, it should work. I mean, no matter how many events you create, it should always work. Sometimes it doesn't. Now, to me, this sounds like a prime candidate for my universal troubleshooting thing. So if it were for my situation, I would go and turn off iCloud syncing for calendars on all of my devices, restart them all, turn them back on, give everything a little while to sync up, and see if the problem comes back. If it does, since you're talking about calendars in particular, and we do have a book on calendars, reminder, there is a more elaborate procedure that I have had to do once or twice, and it's not fun. But there have been times when I could not solve a calendar syncing problem in any other way. So the process would be turn off syncing for your calendars on everything except for one Mac. On that one Mac, export all of your calendars. You'll have local files that contain this is this calendar, this is this calendar, this is this calendar. Local files. Then you want to not only turn off the calendar, you want to not just turn off the calendars, the calendar syncing on that Mac, but you want to go into the system settings and delete all of your calendar data from iCloud. You want to wipe out iCloud's knowledge of all of your calendar data. Then restart your Mac, re-import all those calendars that you have stored locally, then turn on syncing, wait for that one Mac to sync, go to the website, verify that all your stuff is there. Once it's all there, because it could take a while, then you start turning on the syncing on your other devices so that it can propagate down. I mean, it's painful. It's time consuming. You got to be very careful because you want to make sure you don't delete the stuff from iCloud before you have a local backup. Okay, so if you get into a severe problem that merely turning off calendar syncing everywhere and then turning it back on does not solve, that might work.
Can I ask one more question along the similar lines?
Okay.
In iOS, there are settings about how you want things to sync that I don't really understand. Are those covered in your book?
Yes. Now I'm going to pull my iPhone out of my pocket, and I'm going to just see quickly if I can.
Those don't exist on the Mac, right?
Well, I want to make sure I'm talking about the same things you're talking about. So I've got my iPhone here. I'm in settings, in the iCloud settings. So if you can point me to an example, then I can tell you what I know about it.
I forget where it is, but there's a setting where it says sync at intervals or sync or manually trigger or something like that, but I forget where those settings are. Could they be in the calendar itself?
Oh, you're talking about
Like a
specifically for
backup
calendars.
setting.
I was looking for a general iCloud setting. I okay, so
No, I don't see.
I cannot tell you off the top of my head, but if later on you locate that setting, you can send me email, Joe at takecontrolbooks.com. Send me email, and I will tell you what I know about it.
Cool. Thanks.
Anyone else have a question?
Really? All that? Any other questions? Come on.
Oh, I heard somebody
Bill.
has a hand up. I gotta see.
Bill.
Bill has his hand up.
Okay,
Yeah.
hi.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good, because I have weird settings. I'm one of those odd people who I have an iPhone, I have other older iOS devices,
Mhm.
but I am not a Mac user.
Okay.
I actually do all my work between my iPhone and iCloud through a browser in my Linux machine.
Okay.
So how much does your book cover services using the web base of iCloud.com?
So, I mean, a fair amount. I mean, in most cases, like if you're talking about the Keynote app or the Pages app at iCloud.com, it's almost exactly the same as the version on the Mac or on your iPhone for that matter. So in cases where the app is pretty much the same as what you're going to get on another device, I don't go into detail about it. What I do go into detail in the book about is stuff that is unique to the web. So for example, if you're using the Mail app on Apple's website, you might need to set up out of the office messages or filtering, and that's stuff that is not the same as in any of their mobile or desktop apps. So I talk about that. I also talk about all the like account settings and how you can use their website to recover stuff like files and calendars and contacts that have been deleted within the last 30 days. So I do talk about the aspects of the website that aren't covered anyplace else, but I don't, I don't go into details about things that are either the same as an existing app or pretty self-explanatory. Now, I thought for a minute, I thought you were going to say, and I do all my work on Windows, which if that were the case, then I would have a different answer, because there is such a thing as iCloud for Windows, and you can get a lot of iCloud features on Windows too. This being an Apple group, I didn't think I would bother talking about that. It's covered in the book. But Linux, unfortunately, you can only, I mean, there's nothing besides the browser. So
Right.
there's no other way to get at iCloud features, which unfortunately cuts off some of the things that you can do on Windows. So like you can't sync your browser bookmarks to Linux through iCloud. You can't sync your credentials like usernames and passwords like you can on Windows. So it's more limited, but you can still do a fair amount of stuff in the browser.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else got any questions? No?
Well, if not, I thank you all for your kind attention. It's been a pleasure being with you as always. I hope to see you again sometime.
Thank you
I'm
very
sure
much.
you're all gonna go order new iPhones and Apple Watches and wait impatiently for them to arrive.
Kind of, we didn't know it was going to be the keynote this morning, so like we would have scheduled a different day. But
Yeah, that happens. It's all right.
no, it's worked out. We covered it. All right. Thank you very much, Joe.
You're welcome. Until next time.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time.
Nice.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
So I think we'll save that as a separate recording this point. So I'm going to say bye-bye to people, so they'll have a self-contained Joe recording.